order to get justice. You just got away with murder, and now you want to sue the cops for wrongful arrest. You murdered the person. You somehow found some technicality to get out of it. And then it's almost like Alec Baldwin. He shot and killed Helena Hutchins. They found a technicality. They threw the case out. And then Alec Baldwin turned around and sued the people as if he was the victim. If he didn't point the gun at Helena Hutchins' face and pull the trigger, she would still be alive. So my case started in county court and it was bound over to district court. And so I'm thinking of if you're to use Wallace v. Kato strictly, for my own case, how would it pan out? And the way that it would pan out is the wrongful arrest happens, and then the arraignment happened pretty quickly too. So within a month or two. And so the 1 day of jail time and then the bail bond, that was the injury for the wrongful arrest, but that initiated the whole malicious prosecution. And then the judge, of the Kim Woods and then Michael Gonzalez, both of those fucking pricks are, maliciously prosecuting too. They're just supposed to sit in judgment. But when you have a bunch of insecure fucks, habeas corpus means you have the body. And a lot of times if, insecure fucks have the body, well, they're going to do whatever they can to force that body and rape the body and fuck the body over. So the holding for Wallace v. Kato is a Fourth Amendment wrongful arrest accrual begins once the detained pursuant through the legal process. Once the legal process grabs a hold of the wrongful arrest person, that's when the wrongful arrest claim begins. It's according to Wallace v. Kato, which I think is a terrible decision. Now, Andre Wallace, was he guilty? Was he not guilty? There's something about, self-defense or mutual combat or something. So it's almost like they knew some of the facts of the case that they had their man. Now, Joe Bryan, they thought they had their man. But let's use a completely innocent person. If we're going to use a completely innocent person in the interest of justice, then we'd have to hedge some of these smaller rules in the guy's favor. He was completely innocent, and he's going to be behind bars for 30-something years or something. And then Joe Bryan, when he finally got out, he only got to have 4 years of life, and then he died, 4 years after he got out. He was an old man. He was 50 years old when all this happened, and he gets out when he's 80 years old or so, and then dies when he's 84. When he gets out, he says you got to fight the false charges all the way to the end. Never take a fucking plea deal. Never say, never say never. Never say die. Goonies never say die. Live free or die, right? Isn't that what the New Hampshire state motto is? So that's all my notes that I have on that, but I got more notes here. Since I have another 10 minutes. Dennis Dunlap had killed Mickey Blue. So Dennis Dunlap is the one that killed Mickey Blue. Who killed Joe Bryan's wife? Dennis Dunlap did. But the police, they get so involved in their own investigations and they got their egos, and then the prosecutors and the judges, they think they got their man, right? Habeas corpus, they got the body. And since they got the body, well, they're going to screw the body over. And so Joe Bryan isn't going to get released until March 2020. This case happened in 1985. He got arrested immediately after. So he's going to spend 35 years in jail. Joe Bryan went to jail for 35 fucking years. And then when he was released on probation. So he was freed, but he was still on parole. So he couldn't go back to the county that he had grown up in and knew all of his friends and family and neighbors, the place where he was a principal. He also couldn't leave the state, nor visit the county. He would die 4 years later. So Framed by John Grisham is an incredible collection of Americans who were falsely accused and had to serve years in jail. There's one story about how forced confessions is a real thing. There's this one guy that was faced with life in prison or the death penalty, so his lawyer had told him to just go ahead and confess to the whole thing so he would be spared of the death penalty. I'll get you a good deal. Well, what is that, life in prison? But I didn't do any of it. It doesn't matter. I just had another client, he got the death penalty. Well, you're a shitty fucking lawyer. I know. So the guy just said that he did this foul, evil deed. He admitted that he was a part of this heinous gang rape and murder with 3 other fucking guys that the prosecutors and the cops and the courts and the judges all had. When none of that happened. It was Omar Bradley. He killed her. He also admitted it. He confessed to it. They had to kill her. They had to kill her behind bars. He confessed to it. But nobody believed him. Instead, 4 weak men were taking the rap because a bully cop had bullied them into confessing. A false confession is a damn thing. When you're being tortured, you'll just say whatever you got to say in order to stop the torture, right? There's another story from Framed where the investigators were so convinced of their leads and story that they would rather arrest a dozen instead of listening to the guy who's straight up telling them that they did it. So it's like these cops and investigators, judges, prosecutors, clerks, they just get so wrapped up that the bodies that they captured are guilty. They're always guilty, and they're going to be guilty no matter what. So it's almost like the accusation, the facts, the crime itself. It's like the accusation and the arrest is all that people need to know that, a person is guilty. I heard somebody say that the conviction is bigger than the crime. And that's such bullshit. The conviction is a good conviction. If a conviction is a good conviction, then yeah, that makes sense. If a person was convicted for the crime, then that's that would be like a star in your cap. When you say that that person is a rapist. Well, he wasn't convicted. Okay, then that means he just fucking was a really good criminal. But if he's a convicted rapist, that does add, a feather to your cap. But if the person was convicted of some bullshit that didn't happen, well, that's a terrible conviction. If anything, the conviction should be a fucking crime in of itself. Joe Bryan was convicted for murdering a wife, murdering his own wife that he loved and adored, that he didn't have anything to do with. Dennis Dunlap did. He didn't get arrested. He didn't have to go through court. And Joe Bryan is going to spend 35 years in jail. So you're not innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent. That's the exact opposite of how our system is supposed to work. And unfortunately, many of these framed cases only exonerated the accused once the guilty was actually found. They had to find the actual guilty party, and that's the only way you could prove innocence. Well, there's DNA on the scene. We found the guy whose DNA it was, and therefore it was him. There's a lot of similarities between these cases in Frame. You had an overly aggressive cop yelling at a suspect all night, cursing a confession, lying to him. They would do a lie detector test, and then they would say, you failed the lie detector. They would come back in, and they would say, well, we got evidence. We got a witness who saw you doing what you were doing, and we got evidence. We got the video photographs, and we know you were there. So these cops are being overly aggressive, overly, over the top. They come up with a bogus theory, and then they double down on their theory over and over again, never letting up. The judge, the prosecutors, all these assholes just kept doubling down on their theory, whether it was true or not. It didn't matter. The truth didn't matter. And in order to get objective justice, you need objective truth. So Frame pointed out how the criminal justice system is an injustice system, and there's a lot of failings. Joe Bryan was 120 miles away from the scene of the crime when it happened, attending a principal conference in Austin. And then Mickey Blue was butchered. So think about that. You go to a principal conference, you leave the home, for 2 hours. You found out that your wife was just brutally murdered, so you're fucking devastated. You're sad as shit. Your wife was just brutally fucking murdered while you was out on a, conference that you'd probably be kicking yourself like, why did I even go to this damn conference? I should have just stayed home, or made sure they had a .357 Magnum, teach her how to shoot a gun, teach her to lock the damn doors. And then that Dennis Dunlap had also killed Judy Whitley too, just a few months and less than a mile away from Mickey Blue's house. So Dennis Dunlap raped and killed Judy Whitley and raped and killed Mickey Blue, and he got away with it. Eventually he's going to hang himself later on. But Mickey Blue is butchered. There's blood on the ceiling, blood on the walls. She was naked from the waist down with her pink nightgown pulled up to her thighs. She was shot 4 times with a .357 Magnum, the gun in the home. The scene was scrubbed clean. No boot or shoe prints, no fingerprints, no semen or hair or blood of the perpetrator was found. No signs of forced entry, but they did find a cigarette butt. a cigarette butt with